welcome back to the IrishRacing.com YouTube channel. I'm your host, Emma Nagle, and we're here for the Punchestown Festival 2025 preview. Delighted to be joined by two guests today, Donn McClean and Stephen Harris, to preview the week action. A lot to kind of pack into one show, so we're going to focus on the grade ones across the week. We've got declarations for the first 2 days in already. Stephen, I'll go to you first, I suppose. Not much time to reflect on a big weekend for Willie Mullins, but looks like another big week ahead for him here in Punchestown.
Yeah, I mean, he dominates the entries, doesn't he? Certainly in the grade ones. I do think this is a perilous time of year for punters, Emma. These are, without being unkind, sort of afterthoughts after Cheltenham and Aintree, aren't they? I don't think the season began sort of back in October with people thinking, what are we going to run at Punchestown in particular? And as we've seen in the last sort of week or so, certainly at Sandown on Saturday with Jambon getting beaten by Il Temps. Freshness can be the thing you want at this time of year. That they've all had 3 or 4 pretty hard races, and also Donn was just saying off air. Obviously, the ground's just yielding there at the minute. But by the time we get to sort of Friday and Saturday, looking at the weather forecast, if you've got the same weather as we've got over here, then I'd have thought things would be quickening up quite appreciably.
Yeah, it's a very good forecast here for the week. Donn, how kind of important do you think that freshness element is for kind of punters going into Punchestown?
Yeah, no, it's a good point that Stephen makes, Emma. It's hard to know. Like, obviously, we know from years gone by, horses can cope with a tough campaign and come on to Punchestown, whereas others haven't been to Cheltenham or Aintree or one or the other, or Ferry has very close this year. But it's hard to kind of evaluate the degree to which freshness is an important factor. It is important, but it obviously affects different horses in different ways. And we've seen, like, Willie Mullins' horses, we know how dominant he is at Punchestown, especially in the Grade 1 races. And Willie kind of seems to plan to go all the way through to the end of Punchestown week, whereas other horses maybe had their peak target earlier in the spring, and then Punchestown, as Stephen was saying, is a nice to have after their main target at somewhere else at Cheltenham or Aintree maybe along the way. So yeah, I think it's a case by case scenario, kind of evaluating each race as they come and each horse as in terms of the bank of evidence that we have for each horse, how they cope with being fresh versus not being not so fresh.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It's kind of hard to put a blanket over them saying if they've been to the big festivals, you can't rely on them here. We'll dive straight into the first grade 1 on the card, and it's probably a good enough example of it. It's the 4:15 on the Tuesday, the KPMG Champion Novice Hurdle grade 1 event over the 2 miles. And last year, I suppose, Mystical Power kind of defied anyone who might be doubting horses can go to all the big festivals. He went to Cheltenham, he went to Aintree, and he came down to Punchestown then, and he won again. And another warm, I suppose, a hot price favourite here for Willie Mullins, Kopek de Boer, the Supreme Novice winner. And he's facing off with a grade 1 winner at Aintree, stablemate Salvatore Mundi. Patrick's on Salvatore Mundi, Paul's on Kopek de Boer. Others in the race, Aranti, again for Willie Mullins, Mark Walsh, Carabao, Danny's Ride, and the other 2 look to be kind of making up the numbers, Winnie Hill and Fleetfoot. Stephen, I'll go to you here first. Kopek de Board's incredibly impressive at Cheltenham, but I liked the way Salvatore Mundi shaped in Punchestown again here now, so I'm not really sure it's just a procession for the favourite.
No, I agree. It's a very dangerous time of year to take short prices full stop. I mean, I think they're going to be something like 2-5 and 4-1, and I could only back Salvatore Mundi at 4-1 if that's the case. He was so impressive at Aintree. I think he'll like drying ground if that's what you're going to get by Tuesday at 4:15. He's got plenty of speed. He looked much more settled at Aintree, and he was really impressive. I mean, it's hard. Kopek de Boer was a sort of rare highlight for punters, as it turned out at Cheltenham. Everything started off smoothly. The whole world was on, and he was perfect. I mean, to play devil's advocate, he was perfectly positioned and did everything right to win at Cheltenham. And he looks a top-class prospect. But before that, there were a lot of people willing to take him on. I was one of them. His jumping hadn't particularly impressed, certainly first time out, and he looked very free on occasion. So it's not like he's bomb-proof. He's 5-2 on after quite a hard race in the Supreme. I'd sooner back Salvatore Mundi. I do think it is a match. The pair of them look a stone clear on form, unless it got really tactical. Obviously,
Yeah, I think
Townend's on the favourite. That's going to mean he's going to be a short price favourite, and Patrick's on the other one, which punters tend not to like. So, but personally, if that's the sort of gulf between them, I think it's probably too wide.
yeah, tactics will be interesting here, and I'd agree. I'd hard to see any of the top two in the betting. I'd say it's between the two of them. Donn, Salvatore Murray's got 18 lengths to make up on that Supreme Novice running. Do you think he can get a bit closer to go back to boards here?
I think he certainly can, Emma. Like when go back to board when he won the Supreme Novices Hurdle, it was brilliant. You know, the atmosphere around Cheltenham, the first favourite of the Lucky 50 or of the accumulator gone in, and that to me that was brilliant for racing. It didn't quite pan out like that directly afterwards, but I just think the Supreme Novices Hurdle this year was a very, very good race. The first three home, I think, are really good horses. It's going to be really interesting to see how they progress now. Please God, all going well next season. William Money was second, Romeo Coolio third, and Romeo Coolio, like of course Salvatore Mundi was in the Supreme Novices Hurdle, as you said. He was 18 lengths behind, 18 and a half lengths behind the winner. He reversed places with Romeo Coolio from Cheltenham at Aintree last time, and to me that was the real Salvatore Mundi. Like when he won the Moscow Flyer Hurdle, he did lots wrong and still managed to win. So there was a kind of a dichotomy there. Do you view the fact that he did so much wrong and still managed to win as a positive, or the fact that he did so much wrong as a negative? But I think his Aintree performance it kind of showed us the type of horse that he is, and it was a good pace at Aintree, a good strong pace, and he came off it well and he won nicely. Of course, he won the Moscow Flyer Hurdle at Punchestown as well in January, so he's got course form. But I just think Kopek de Board is just so good. He's got so much potential. He was so good at Cheltenham. He's only 5. He did really well to win at Leopardstown at Christmas, jumping as poorly as he jumped, and then he put it all together the next time at the Dublin Racing Festival, jumping a lot better. And like wherever he goes next season, all going well, he's going to be just a really, really exciting horse, whether he remains over hurdles or goes over fences. But in the shorter term, yeah, like I think he's probably a better horse than Salvatore Mundi. I can see Salvatore Mundi getting quite significantly closer to him than he did at Cheltenham. And as you said, Emma, as we saw with Mystica Power last season, it is possible to go to Cheltenham and Aintree and then come on to Punchestown if you have the right horse. But yeah, I can see him running well and finishing second behind Kopek de Board.
Yeah, it's fair enough. Probably not a betting race for me in that one there now. Like you said, I think Salvatore Mundi will get closer, but I'm not sure will he get past Kopek de Board at the same time. He did look like a superstar winning the Supreme Novice. But we'll move on to the next grade 1 of the day, the 450, the Dooley Insurance Group Champion Novice Chase, grade 1 over the 3 miles. And this is really interesting. We've got the first 5 home from the Brown Advisory, all showing back up again here. But it's the 5th home that day. Ballyburn is the favourite, 11-8, back up to the 3 miles again. Maybe slightly disappointing in the Brown Advisory. The jumping seemed to let him down that day. Lecky Watson, of course, Brown Advisory winner. He's 11-4. Next in the betting, then Imperial Pass, 5-1. Stellar Story, second in the Brown Advisory, obviously 12-1. Then again, Donn, I'll go to you first here. Ballyburn, he's kind of lost that air of invincibility that he had last year. Do you think he can kind of pick up the pieces here again now?
Yeah, there's every chance he will, Emma. Like he's a very, very good horse. We know that. I just think he's always popular. He's always fashionable. He's always short, and he made that bad mistake at Cheltenham the last day in the Brown Advisory Chase. That and his jumping wasn't good after that for him. I mean, maybe they'll allow him just bowl along and jump, because he can be quite a free going type. And maybe if they allow him stride on in front, and that's probably at Punchestown, it's a good place to do that. Then maybe he'll bounce back to the form that he was showing last year, as in the form of his novices hurdling season. But I just think he's short, and I wouldn't be at all surprised to see him winning well. But I think he's short. Lecky Watson's a really admirable horse. He stayed on really well to win the Brown Advisory Chase, and he's unbeaten now over fences, and he's got form over intermediate trips earlier in the season. But I just think he's a stamina horse. I think the stamina test at Cheltenham suited him well, and the last 2 seasons he's run at Punchestown at this meeting at the festival, and he's kind of underperformed on both occasions. So I can see Empire Pass running really, really well. Like he's a classy horse. He's the Aintree Hurdle winner. He was a top class novices hurdler, novice hurdler. He won the Bury and Bingham Hurdle. He's stepping up in trip now, up to 3 miles and a furlong. but he won the select hurdle over 2 miles, 5.5 furlongs at Sandown last season. He saw at that trip well. There's every chance he will stay. And at Aintree the last day, he was very, very good. He travelled really well through his race. He only won by just over a length in the end, but he left the impression that he had way more in hand than that. And on the Racing IQ data, he was apparently the fastest chaser through the last 4 furlongs of any chaser at the Aintree Grand National Meeting. And he's only 7, he's only run 4 times over fences. So I think there could be more to come from him. I know he's been to Aintree, and that's 3.5 weeks ago, but he wasn't at Cheltenham. He went straight from the Dublin Racing Festival to Aintree and now on here. So yeah, I think he should be a fair bit closer to the top 2 in the market than he is.
Yeah, definitely a high-class horse and interesting stepping up to this trip for the first time. Don, what do you think? Oh, sorry, not Don, Stephen. What do you think? It's obviously a massive debt, like Slade Steele, last year's Supreme Novice winner in here at 14-1. We obviously haven't seen him since Christmas as well. There's plenty in here that you could make a case for to take on the favourite. What do you think? Are you gonna try and take on Ballyburn as well?
Well, I think this is one of those races. I mean, Willie Mullins has probably got about 2 things wrong all season, hasn't he? And they definitely got this wrong at Cheltenham. I mean, it was pounds, shillings and pence. And for almost the first time since his sort of early hurdling days, they dropped him out and it didn't suit. I mean, his nose was on the floor for the first mile, pulling Townend's arms out. And then he made those mistakes. I mean, he was disappointing on the day. I mean, I was at Kempton, I think, when Sir Gino lapped him, and he was very disappointing that day. So there's going to be opposition to him at some point. The only thing I think they'll definitely do here, and Don touched on it, they'll front run on him. And he won't be 6-4 against, he'll be 6-4 on, because he'll be 5 lengths clear. I mean, I don't fancy the second in at all here, Lecky Watson. I think they tried to put him in 5-2. I think he'll end up 4 or 5-1. I mean, he was 40-1 at Cheltenham with 2 previous wins over fences. It was just one of those races. Ballyburn wasn't a factor from an early stage, and it wasn't a race to read to, literally. I think Ballyburn 6-4. If you know he's going to front, which the late exchange market possibly will, I don't think he'll be 6-4. I don't think he'll be 6-4 after 100 yards. Don said about Impera Pass. I think Impera Pass is definitely second in on overall form. I just don't think he'll stay. He was quite a free-going horse in his early days, and he did win at Sandown, but he only beat Langadanga. It wasn't wonderful form over hurdles on that occasion. I do have that 3 mile one. It'll take a bit of getting round here if Ballyburn goes off in front, and I think Impera Pass might not get home. But personally, I think backing the favourite at 6-4 at the moment is probably a good trading position, whatever happens, because if they do front on him, I think he'll be a very short price after 2 fences.
Yeah, kind of like you both said, he is popular with the punters, Ballyburn, so you can imagine him going off a little bit shorter here. I'd maybe give a small chance to Gorgeous Tom here for Henry de Bromhead and Darragh O'Keefe. I know he has a form to reverse in the Brown Advisory with a couple of these, but I think the drying ground here, Punchestown, was suiting. He caused a bit of an upset in at the festival last year. He beat Mr. Giff in the Louis Fitzgerald hurdle. He's probably a horse. I think maybe we haven't seen the best of him yet over fences. I think he's got plenty of ability, and 3 miles looks like it could be right up his alley as well. So I'd maybe give him a small squeak each way on drying ground, Gorgeous Tom, to make up a bit of ground on that Brown Advisory form. But we'll move on to the next Grade 1 on the opening day of the festival. It's the William Hill Champion Novice Chase, Grade 1 over the 2 miles. 6 runners declared for this one, and a really interesting contest. We've got the Ryanair winner, Fact to Foil, taking on Champion Chase winner Marie Nationale. It's currently around 5-6 Fact to Foil, 2-1 Marie Nationale. Don, I'll go to you first again here. I know you were a bit of a Marie Nationale fan coming into the festival. This is interesting. Fact to Foil dropping back to 2 miles for the first time since being second in the Champion Bumper a few years ago. It's a brave move by Willie, and interesting he's put in favourite here as well over the Champion Chase winner.
Yeah, it's really interesting now to see how he's going to go over 2 miles and half a furlong. As you say, the first time since the Champion Bumper, and his run before the Champion Bumper, he ran the 2.5 mile bumper at the Leopardstown Christmas Festival, and that's normally a stamina race. So, and like he ran in the Irish Gold Cup and the Savills Chase earlier this season, and like he was so good in the Ryanair Chase. But obviously that's an intermediate trip. It's 2 miles, 4.5 furlongs, back down to 2 miles today, on Tuesday, tomorrow. Yeah, I think he could be vulnerable. Like he's a smashing horse. Obviously, it goes without saying he was one of the most impressive winners at the Cheltenham Festival. But it's an unknown now dropping back down in trip, and we know Punchestown at the festival when on kind of just grand on the easy side of good. It's a pace track, and he's a pacey horse, fact to file, but 2 miles is obviously very different to 2.5. And look, you can see why they're coming here. JP McManus has the in the Punchestown Gold Cup. He's represented. Willie Mullins has represented the Punchestown Gold Cup. So you can see why they're running fact to file here. There's no 2.5 mile race at Punchestown. So it's an interesting project, and it's going to be it's interesting to see how he gets on. Marine National, yeah, like I can see, like he's a specialist 2 miler. He goes well at Punchestown. He's won his bumper here. He won his maiden hurdle here, and he was so good in the champion chase. I know that the winning distance was accentuated by Calixio's fall at the final fence, but he had the race in the bag at that point, I thought, anyway. And he's still a lightly raced horse. He's only had 6 runs over fences, so I can see him running a massive race. But I thought Solness was a wee bit overlooked in the market. He does have to reverse a 20-length defeat by Marine National from the champion chase, but nothing went right in that race. It was a false start. It was a standing start. He didn't seem to get into his racing rhythm for a while, and it wasn't that he missed the break from the standing start. It just seemed to take him a while to get into his racing rhythm. He didn't move to the front until the 5th fence, and he only lasted in front for two fences. So I think back at Punchestown, it's a small field, and look, Sinisi is in there. He likes to go forward, so he might face competition for the early lead, but I think there's every chance that he will lead and settle into his rhythm. And if he does, I don't think he got the credit that he should have got for his wins at Leopardstown, either of them. Definitely not at Christmas, and maybe not at the Dublin Racing Festival either. So I think maybe if he can just on the ground, if he can settle into his rhythm from early, then he could put it up to Marine National and Factifile.
Yeah, Connections won this last show. I see with Banbridge. We just got the better of Captain Guinness that time. Haven't even mentioned the previous champion chase winner, and El Fabiolo as well, a previous Arkle winner. Stephen, what's your take on this one?
Well, yeah, I completely agree with what Donn just said, really. Solness has got a great chance to lead on its own here, providing it gets rid of the rag early on. And exactly what you said, at Cheltenham, there were 5 different leaders, wasn't there, in the first mile? He got absolutely driven mad, and he ended up starting out really wide as well, which is never good round Cheltenham over that trip. I can see him being 4 or 5 lengths clear. I love Factifile. I think he'll win the Gold Cup next season. I think he's a good thing for that. So it's very brave. I mean, it's like the sort of old Desert Orchid days, isn't it? Where he used to run in the Victor Chandler Chase and end up running in the Gold Cup at the end of the season. It's very interesting that they've come back to 2 miles. I mean, he's a top-class horse, strong traveller. I think he'll like the drying ground Factifile, actually. But you can imagine this race, there might be a stage where he's sort of 20 lengths behind. Solness is 10 lengths clear, and maybe a little niggly mistake and starts getting a bit tapped. We've seen lots of reversals in form on this sort of ground at the end of the season before. So I don't particularly fancy Marine National at the prices. I think that race did fall apart and was set up for him. Obviously, John Bon got de Boinville and all but fell early. So it became a bit of a funny race where it went too fast and Marine winning. I think he won by 18 lengths in the end. I think he's the weak link in the chain, but I totally agree with Donn. 10-1 Solness. I think you might be on pretty good terms with yourself after 3 fences. He could easily be 3 or 4-1, not 10-1, if they let him go. And what you just said, Emma, as well, I agree. And with Donn, it wasn't a fluke when he won those races early in the season. He went off like the absolute clappers and sustained it and kept going. The only thing, perhaps, I'd probably like Danny Mullins to be riding him again. Personally, because I think they get on so well together, and he gets it jumping and knows how to ride him. But obviously, a pretty able substitute in Slevin.
Yeah, JJ, of course, won the Grade 1 on him at Christmas time as well. So he gets a fairly good tune out of Solness as well. And he's definitely one who will be suited by this drying ground as well. So strong shouts for Solness in the 3rd Grade 1 on the opening day. We'll move on to Wednesday's racing. Trying to keep track of the days now. It's going to get a little bit confusing as we go through the week at Punchestown. But first Grade 1 on the day on Wednesday. It's the novice hurdle. Sorry, the Grade 1 novice hurdle over 2 miles 7. just got declarations through for this morning. 8 declared, and we've got the Albert Bartlett winner Jasmine DeVoe heading the market again for that team. Willie Mullins and Paul Townend in the double green silks. He's about 5-4. You're going out to 11-4 for the next in the betting. Honesty Policy for Gordon Elliott and Mark Walsh, obviously a winner, grade 1 winner at the Aintree Festival. 8-1 Card Counter for Gordon again. 8-1 Jerry Demi, a horse that Patrick knows well. He's been kind of plying his trade in the UK for the last couple of starts, and Familiar Dreams, the filly in there as well, around 8-1 for Gordon Elliott and Jordan Gain. For Stephen, I'll go to you first for this one. Maybe Jasmine DeVoe, he kind of put it all together again at the Cheltenham Festival. His jumping was leaving plenty to be desired, but geez, he was very impressive winning the Albert Bartlett, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, it's just one of those races, the Albert Bartlett, isn't it? Sort of racing purists tend to want to take 5-4 next time about it. Often the form disappears into the abyss, but there's no doubt that Jasmine was very impressive and jumped a lot better when winning the Albert Bartlett, and is probably the form choice here. I mean, I think if I was being honest, I'd probably want to be a bookmaker here and try and put the front two in at sort of 5-4 and 5-2. Honesty Policy is very progressive, was pretty impressive at Aintree in a bunched finish. I'm not sure that form's wonderful. Has obviously got stamina to prove as well, up to 3 miles. And Gordon Elliott, Emma, 6 winners from 62 runners. I wouldn't say I can't really think of many that have run diabolically badly, but maybe at this stage of the season, he's just starting to tail off a bit. Obviously, he hasn't made much impression with some of the high-profile runners over the last weekend or two, so that would be a slight concern. I think I'll be trying to look for a result here at the prices.
Honesty Policy, Donn, he was well found in the market when he won that grade 1 at Aintree. Do you think he can step up to the 3 miles here and maybe put a real challenge up to Jasmine DeVoe?
Yeah, like it's a really interesting race. I mean, there's so many different strands coming together. And yeah, Honesty Policy, he was good at Aintree, wasn't he? Like he picked up well, he stayed on strongly. I think that was his first run in the JP McManus colours, and he won well. Card Counter, like he's a kind of a horse that's making nice progress under the radar, but he won well at Nagle the last day. Yeah, like he won his maiden hurdle at Punchestown as well, so he's a horse who you can see just continuing his progress. Interesting, Argenta Boys got cheek pieces on for the first time. They could elicit a little bit of improvement from him. Jasmine DeVoe, like I know Stephen says he's short, but I think he deserves to be at the top of the market, and it is a race that in which the fancied horses do well. I think 4 of the last 5 winners were favourite or thereabouts. Now, they haven't all come from the Albert Bartlett hurdle, but some of them have. And Jasmine DeVoe, yeah, like at Cheltenham, I thought he did really well to win. Like he was well back in the field early on. It probably helped by the fact that there are only 2 hurdles in the last 7 furlongs on the new course at Cheltenham. And he came down the near side, and he might have been helped by avoiding the little bit of trouble that was on the inside at the second last flight as well. But I think he was the best horse in the race on the day, and he's a horse who, like, he's the champion bumper winner from last season as well from Cheltenham. Now, he did come on here and was well beaten in the Punchestown champion bumper, so that's just in the back of your mind. But he's a horse with an engine, and that's going to be a big help here. Like his jumping is getting better. Like it was really poor. Even when he won his maiden hurdle at Navan, it wasn't good that day, and then he didn't get away with it in the Laurels of Nace race, a Grade 1 race. But it was better at Cheltenham, and he still has plenty of room for improvement in his jumping, and that may be a factor at Punchestown more so than it was in the new course at Cheltenham. But I just think he's got an engine. He's such a likeable horse. He's got a really good attitude, and yeah, I think he's the right favourite for the race.
Yeah, he definitely feels like the best horse in the race. The rest of them kind of have to, I think, still prove that they're on the same level as him. But you mentioned Card Counter. He is a horse that I like. Sam Ewing rides him. He's not overly flashy. He's by Milan. I think this trip will be right up his alley. Like he has to improve a fair bit now to get up to Jasmine DeVoe's level. I think he's rated 12 pounds below on official ratings, but he's definitely a horse on an upward curve, and maybe it's a little bit of a shout each way for Card Counter for me. I liked the way he won in Navan last time. He looks like a real kind of grinder, could suit this staying trip over hurdles. So I might take a small chance on Card Counter, but I think, yeah, Jasmine DeVoe definitely has to be respected in this one. We'll go on to the next Grade 1 on the day then. It's the Champion Bumper, Grade 1 over the 2 miles. And only 7 declared for this. Maybe slightly surprising, there was quite a big entry. But we've got Bambino Fever, who's been a bit of a revelation, I suppose, so far this season. And interesting, Jodie retains the ride on her. She's obviously built up quite a good relationship with this mare. She's been busy. She won at New Year's Day, then she went to the DRF, then she went to Cheltenham, and she's been backing it up every time. Next in the betting then is Carl Cannon, I think, for Noel Meade and Derek O'Connor. Copacabana is the choice of Patrick Mullins, and Calypso Chance, who I actually quite liked going to the Cheltenham Festival bumper, was a little bit disappointing there, but aims to bounce back here under Harry Swan. It's a small field, but an interesting race, Donn. What's your thoughts on the champion bumper?
Yeah, I was with you on Calypso Chance, Emma, at Cheltenham. I thought he'd run better than he did. He was really well supported. We don't have a deep bank of evidence yet, but was it the ground? Was that why he had to perform? I'm not sure. Look, I think he's worthy of another chance on the ground. Bambino Fever, yeah, look, there's nothing not to like about her. She did well to win at Cheltenham as well. Like, she was well back in the field, heads up set, a sedate pace, and she came from mid-division. And got up and got the better of him. Shuttle Diplomacy finished third, hasn't enhanced that form since, but that was in the race that Sortuda won, and Sortuda finished seventh, and he was really good in winning at Fairyhouse. So, look, the champion bumper at Cheltenham, it's often a really strong race. There's no reason to believe that it wasn't a strong race again this season yet. And Bambino Fever, she won it well, making ground into a quickening pace as well against a talented horse, John McConnell's, who got an easy time of it in front. Colcannon was good in winning the Grade 2 race at the Dublin Racing Festival. He obviously didn't go to Cheltenham. He comes on here, so he's fresher than most. And another word mentioning Classical Creek. When he ran in the listed bumper at Navan back in December, there wasn't much between him and Calypso Chance either in terms of the market on the day. I know Calypso Chance came, they backed him in the end, just towards the end, and he ran out a good winner. But Classical Creek is potentially a good horse in there as well. And Switch from Diesel, I think she's run 11 times in bumpers. She finished second in the Mayor's bumper at the Dublin Racing Festival for each of the last 2 years, and then she's won her last two. She was good in winning at Fairyhouse the last day, beating another good mare in Carrigmore and Spruce. So you can see her running a race. But Bambino Fever, yeah, really interesting. And I think just as well that Jodie Townend retains the ride. She struck up such a good relationship with her. She was very good on her at Cheltenham. And yeah, I can see her, like, again, she's favoured, but I think the others have to improve to get up to her level again, and there's every chance that she can come forward again from Cheltenham.
Yeah, I think so. I'm finding her a little bit hard to oppose here now. Stephen, what's your thoughts? Can you take the favourite on here?
Yeah, it's not a betting race for me. I must admit, Irish bumpers wouldn't be high on my list, but the only thing about Colcannon, the second in, I don't know whether it was ground related, but he was a non-runner, wasn't he, in Ireland over Christmas when the ground was going to be nearly good. And all of his winning forms on sort of soft or heavy. So maybe if it dried out, that would be a negative. And Noel Meade is very quiet at the minute, 0 from 9 in the last 14 days. So I thought the favourite was pretty impressive at Cheltenham. There was fortunes, right? It ended up 4-1, which I think it was a lot bigger than that at various stages through the day anyway. And there was no fluke, was there? It was the best horse in the race, which is not something you always say about the champion bumper. It's often a very rough and messy race, but I didn't think it was this year. So definitely the one to beat, but it's a short price and it's probably just a watching race, I think.
Fair enough. So 2 shows for Bambino Fever for myself and Donn. Stephen, probably not going to get involved in the champion bumper. We'll move on to the next one, the big one of the day, the 5:30, the Ladbrokes Punchestown Gold Cup. Only 4 declared for this one, but it's a small but definitely select field. It's been won the last 2 years by Fast or Slow and JJ Slevin, and he bids to win it again this year with Bambridge, who won last year's 2-mile champion chase at the Punchestown Festival, stepping up again here. Gallopin Des Champs is favourite though, 6-5. Willie Mullins, Paul Townend. His record around Punchestown maybe it leaves a little bit to be desired, but a fair champion, and wouldn't be surprised at all to see him reverse his last few defeats in this. Monty Starr is in there for Henry de Bromhead and Rachel Blackmore, 15-2. And Spillane Tower, a really, really interesting runner for Jimmy Mangan and Mark Walsh. Stephen, I'll go to you here first. Only 4 runners, but this will be a cracker, I would say.
Yeah, I mean, I'm quite surprised at the market here. I mean, maybe it'll be different come the offer, but I'm quite surprised that Gallopin Des Champs is as big as 6-5. To be honest, I think things went wrong for him in the Gold Cup. The ground was probably tight enough for him, and he made a few little uncharacteristic mistakes. And I don't think he was brilliantly positioned early on either. It took him a long time to get him back on an even keel on the right part of the track, and I thought he ran an absolute blind. It was a brilliant Gold Cup, and he lost absolutely nothing in defeat. I ended up being with Bambridge, just having made a book on it, basically, and that was one of the better results for me. And I thought Bambridge ran abysmally in the Gold Cup. He didn't jump well. He lost half a length at nearly every fence up the inside, and he was beat a mile out. I mean, if he's 7-2, I'll be absolutely amazed. There were no excuses. I don't fancy him at all. I'll be amazed if he's as short as that. I think the second in's a very interesting runner. He ticks a lot of boxes, Spillane's Tower. He gave the favourite for the earlier race on his seasonal reappearance at Punchestown. He finished second behind Factor File. He ran an absolute screamer that day, and I didn't think it was a fluke. And I thought he's a very interesting horse going forwards. And he was then one of those horses, and there were several who were sunk without trace in the King George at Kempton. He never really got going, made a few mistakes that day, but he's fresh, isn't he? And at this time of year, maybe if you want to oppose the favourite, he'd be the one to oppose him with. But I must admit, back or lay, Galloping Deschamps at 6-5, I'd had to be a backer of him. And again, a bit like we were talking about Ballyburnham earlier on, I think they'll be much more straightforward here with Galloping Deschamps. I think they'll pop him off in front and he'll make all. And I don't think it'll be odds against after a couple of fences if that's the case. I mean, if Banbridge is a 7-2 chance, I think I'd have to walk back from Punchestown, to be honest.
I don't know am I as negative as you about Banbridge. I think the drawing ground here and the track will definitely play to his strengths a bit. I don't know. He didn't perform in Cheltenham last year either, and still bounced back to win the champion chase here. Donn, what's your thoughts? Galloping Deschamps 6-5. Do you think he can kind of reverse his last few efforts in this?
Yeah, I think he's vulnerable actually. Galloping Deschamps. He's just not as good as a point. Look, he is a John Durkan Chase winner, and he won a Grade 1 as well at Punchestown. But just, maybe I don't know if it's when he got beaten in the John Durkan Chase, you thought maybe it was the 2.5 mile trip, or he just short of 2.5 miles. But Fastest Slow he's beaten him here in this race. Yeah, look, it's hard to be against Galloping Deschamps ever. Anytime he runs, he's such a superstar. But I just think like it's a small field. But Spillane's Tower, he's got plenty in his favour. He loves Punchestown. He won his novice chase here, won a Grade 3 chase here. He won at this meeting last year, beat Monty Star, who's not out of it either, in the Dooley Insurance race when he kept on well, and he comes into the race fresher than most. He hasn't run since the King George. The ground should be in his favour as well. I just think, look, he's got lots to find on Galloping Deschamps on official ratings, but I think there's every chance he can find at least a little bit of that. He's 11 pounds inferior on official ratings, but he's a horse who's got plenty of potential to improve again. And yeah, look, as Stephen said, I can see Galloping Deschamps getting out in front, and he's a very hard horse to pass when he gets out in front. We've seen that on a number of occasions at Leopardstown. And Monty Star, I don't think he's out of it. He was fourth in the Gold Cup, but on that run behind Spillane's Tower here last year, that gives him a big chance, and it's going to be really interesting to see how the race develops, how they set up just for them. And on Banbridge, yeah, look, as Stephen says, he just was so disappointing in the Gold Cup. I was with him, but it wasn't his running. Like you have for whatever reason, he just didn't put in his the performance that he can, and it shouldn't have. It's not a Cheltenham thing. He's a Martin Pipe Hurdle winner. He's an Arkle Trial Chase winner, so it shouldn't have been the track. So just for whatever reason, it wasn't his running. And as you say, Emma, he did bounce back from Cheltenham. Now I know Cheltenham last year it was soft ground that didn't suit him, and he bounced back. The 2 mile trip the last year, over which he just got up and beat Captain Guinness. That was obviously too sharp for him. He's a King George winner, so I wouldn't rule him out. But I think Spillane's Tower could be the one to put it up to Galloping Deschamps.
Yeah, I probably agree with you there. Spillane's Tower, like you said, he has to improve in official ratings, obviously, but a horse maybe who still is improving, and we're probably still yet to see the best of Spillane's Tower. Obviously, his John Durkan performance was brilliant, and coming here, the fresh horse, yeah, I think he could be tough to oppose here. Now, Galloping Deschamps, I'm probably a super fan of his, but I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to ignore his record at Punchestown. It's brilliant that he comes here and takes his chance again, and I'd imagine he probably will buck out and make all. I'd love to see him win it, but I'm probably with Spillane's Tower here as well. Just that freshness angle could be key for him, and it'd be great to see Jimmy Mangan get another win on the big stage. We'll go on to Thursday's racing. I think the first Grade 1 on the card on Thursday is the Barberstown Castle Novice Chase Grade 1. Unfortunately, no declarations yet for this one. This is the 2 mile Novice Chase, but just going on the betting for this one, Majbra Likely to show up here, 4-7 favourite, only by night. Probably looks his main opposition at the moment. Gavin Cromwell's filly just touched off in the Erkel at Cheltenham. She looks like one who really suits this 2-mile trip here as well. Looking at the others in the betting game, Perry Pass unlikely to go here unless he doesn't happen to run at this on one of the earlier days. Jazzy Matty, obviously winner of the Cheltenham Festival as well, Asian Master. Look, probably guessing who shows up here, but we probably know for a fact that Majborough and Only by Night are likely to run here at least. And Stephen, I'll start with you here. Majborough, 4-7 favourite here, anti-post betting, of course, no declarations yet. Look, it looks fairly short for a horse who's jumping left and down big time at Cheltenham, but he's got the engine, doesn't he, to convince people he might be able to bounce back here.
I think Majborough was probably one of the unluckiest losers of the whole of the Cheltenham Festival, to be honest. I mean, in my notes, I sort of said value 10-length winner, really. And I think if Mark Walsh could have the ride again, obviously the mistakes early on didn't help, but if he hadn't steadied into that horrible fence that's right on the bend at Cheltenham, I think it's 2 out, he'd have won bar the error he made there. And I think he's a very, very talented horse who's very likely to be a very short price here, looking at the declarations. I should think he might end up quite a lot shorter than 4-7, to be honest with you. He'll front run again. The drying ground will suit him. He's bound to have been schooled over a few fences to sharpen his jumping up, and he's got an amazing engine. I mean, he was 1-2 putting on at Cheltenham, and the runner-up Only by Night was a 25. It was about a 50 chance on the exchanges. So I think the difference between them is probably a bit closer to that than the current prices for this race. I mean, the 4 Django Bay's come out and got beaten, I think, at Aintree, but ran an absolute blinder, got a very ordinary ride, not surprisingly. And the 4th home Lotus Sud ran really well at Aintree as well. So there's nothing wrong with the form. I think Madge was probably going to be one of the bankers of the week, to be honest.
Yeah, he was. He was one of the bankers of the week in Cheltenham as well, though, which would make punters a little bit worried. Donn, what do you think? Is he a banker here for you?
He's such a likeable horse, I'm at Majborough. Like, he's, to win a Triumph Hurdle the way he did for a horse who's built and bred to be a staying chaser, actually, even to be doing what he's doing over 2 miles. And as Stephen said, like, even after making that mistake at the second last, like a real chance-ending mistake, and another one at the last, he was still only beaten 3 parts of a length by Django Bay and Only by Night. So, like, he's only 5. I'm just dying to see what he's going to do now in the future. Please God, next season he could. You just don't know what he could do next season. But I think Only by Night, she's a really likeable mare. She's been really good all season. She was only just beaten in the Arkle in the end. Gavin Cromwell's done a fantastic job with her. The way that she's progressed and the way she's left her hurdles form behind over fences, and you can see her running well. But Majborough, he's just a monster, and if he jumps a clear round or something resembling a clear round, then yeah, I see it. I can't see him losing, really.
Yeah, I hope he does get around, because he's one of those ones who kind of make you excited, like you said, for the future going forward as well. And interesting to see will Rugo take a chance here. I think one of Paul Nicholls' only chances across the week, maybe one of his only entries. I'm not 100% sure, but good to see a couple of UK challengers coming across. I think we've got one more Grade 1 to chat about on the Thursday. Yeah, the Stayers Hurdle, 6 o'clock, and at the moment there's 16 entered in this. Who's going to show up? Again, a bit of a guessing game, but we're fairly sure Tiupu will probably show up. He's 7-4 favourite at the moment, anti-post betting. Bob Ollinger is in there, 11-4 as well. Hidden Valley Lake, so Rob Corp, the top 3 in the betting at the moment. Rocky's Diamond, another one for Declan Creeley. Home by the Lee. Look, kind of names that we know, and we know them well. Tiupu, I suppose, disappointed a little bit at Cheltenham. Donn, I'll go to you first. Can he bounce back here and back up last year's win?
Yeah, look, it's going to be interesting to see if the 3 Robcore horses run. They'll be looking for different coloured caps in the weigh room, but they'll probably be first, second, and third favourites. And you can why not? You can see why they would all run for different reasons. Hidden Valley Lake was really good at Aintree. Tiupu ran well at Cheltenham. Was just beaten by Bob Ollinger. And like Bob Ollinger, you can argue that Punchestown could suit him even better than Cheltenham did. The pace that he showed, he was given a super ride with Rachel Blackmore, delivered with that really well-timed run to go up and beat Tiupu, and he stayed on really strongly up the hill as well, something that we hadn't really seen Bob Ollinger doing over 3 miles before. So and he's got good form at Punchestown as well. Rocky's Diamond's a horse that You've been talking about him a little while during the season, and he ran a big race at Cheltenham as well. He finished fourth in the end. He's got 10.5 lengths to find with Bob Ollinger, and I think it's hard to see him finding the 10.5 lengths to reverse placings. He ran a big race. He's only a 5-year-old, and I can see him maybe being a horse who'll progress now next season, all going well, either as a staying hurdler or if they go novice chasing with him. He's an exciting horse with Declan Creevy's for the season ahead, but. On the day on if they all take their chance, I like Bob Ollinger. He's 10 now, but what he did at Cheltenham, I thought we saw a new dimension to him at Cheltenham, and there's every chance he can come on and repeat that at Punchestown and get the better of Teahupoo again.
Yeah, he was mighty impressive at Cheltenham, in fairness, and horse with bundles and bundles of ability. Rocky's Diamond, I suppose, in the headlines again recently, part of that infamous double. Dylan Phelan, and plenty of chat about that over the last couple of weeks. Stephen, I'll go to you. What's your thoughts on the stairs? It's an interesting contest.
I thought Teahupoo was just about the form choice. It's all the usual suspects, isn't it? There's just a couple that aren't the usual suspects. Maybe Crambo. Fergal O'Brien's flying. I think he's had 8 winners in the last 14 days. He's had a brilliant season. I think he's had his best ever season. And Crambo will love drying ground. So this is Friday at 6 o'clock, isn't it? I mean, it could be good ground by then if the forecast. So I know they'll probably water to try and not make sure it isn't. But Crambo loves good ground. He won a long walk on good ground. Maybe he'd be overpriced. He's fresh. I mean, he fell at the festival. He was 40 to 1, but it was very early on. So he's only really had 2 runs this season. Maybe he'll be overpriced. And there's one of Willie's. I doubt it'll run because it only ran 5 days ago at Sandown. But Kit's Boohel, it really should have won at Sandown. It was Paul Townend got crowded out with one of the Skelton horses and really finished very strongly up the hill. And I think he probably should have won by 4 or 5 lengths. I mean, whether that form's good enough to challenge here, I doubt. And maybe he probably won't run. But he's an interesting runner. But I thought Teahupoo was favourite. I haven't seen any prices yet, but I should think decent-ish ground would suit Teahupoo. He's a very strong traveller. I thought he just stargazed a bit at Cheltenham, and a lot of horses do that when they hit the front at the last at Cheltenham and look up, stare up the hill, and they stop and something comes and mugs them, usually cheered home by the bookmakers, as Bob Ollinger certainly was at the festival. I was amazed and surprised that Bob Ollinger outstayed Teahupoo, really, but maybe Teahupoo was just stargazing at the crowd a bit. A lot of horses do that at Cheltenham, having hit the front. Maybe they'll wait a bit longer on Teahupoo and use that one's speed rather than getting picked off late. I mean, I must admit, I didn't think Bob Ollinger really stayed the 3-mile trip myself before that race, and he was obviously roared home by all the bookmakers there.
Yeah, for sure. I think at the moment, the kind of betting Teahupoo around 7 to 4, Bob Ollinger around 5 to 2, 9 to 4, and Hidden Valley Lake around 6 to 1. So the Rob Corr are the top 3 in the market. I actually might take a small chance in a steering for Lange each way here if he shows up. Hasn't been to the big festivals. Last seen unseating in the Michael O'Sullivan Memorial Chase at Cork at Easter time. But he's been second in the last 2 renewals of this. He's a bit of a character, I suppose. He's a bit enigmatic, but definitely loves the Punchestown Festival. 2 big runs in this 2 years in a row. He's there 20 to 1. I'd say he's worth a little bit of a shot each way at small enough stakes to run a big race in this, but it could be quite hot if all those Rob Corr horses show up here. So they kind of seem to hold the strong hand in that. We'll move on to Friday's racing now. A few more grade 1s to get through, and first one on the day on Friday we will have a chat about. It's the novice hurdle, the Alana Holmes Champion Novice Hurdle grade 1 over the 2.5 miles. Again, don't have declarations for this, but you could probably assume Final Demand might show up here. I was kind of maybe thinking he might have been declared for the 3-mile novice hurdle, but they may be keeping him over this trip for now. The Yellow Clay, another one not declared yet for a race earlier in the week, so could be showing up here as well. They could make the market in this one, you'd imagine. They were 2nd and 3rd home in the Turner's Novice Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival, and it could be another showdown here. I'll go to you first for this one, Stephen. I don't know, Final Demand, Yellow Clay, there's obviously a few other good horses in this, like so lovely hurdling and she can expose types, but I'd imagine it's between the big 2 if they both show up.
Yeah, I mean, Final Demand was pounds, shillings and pence at the Cheltenham Festival, wasn't he? I think he ended up 6 to 4, and he went through that race like the best horse on the day. Perhaps they made a bit too much use of him. I think he traded very short and looked the winner on the home turn and just didn't quite get home up the hill, maybe using him up. And the New Lion picked him off. I thought Yellow Clay ran an absolute blinder. I actually think that Turners is one of the best form lines from the festival. I think all three of them, to varying degrees, different targets. Maybe New Lion will go down the champion hurdle route for Dan next season. But I did like the runs of both the second and third, and I think they'd be the clear form choice in this race if they turn up. Just to say that this is a rare chance, Don, for you guys over there. Hopefully, I think Harry Derham's planning on running Queensbury Boy, and either in this race or he is in another race as well, I think. A rare chance for you to see the skills of David Maxwell on Irish turf for the first time. This is a very, very nice horse, Queensbury Boy. I know perhaps how good he is might be masked a touch by his rider's riding style. I think he was at Doncaster and at Newbury in small fields, and the form isn't much on paper, but he is held in guard. And Harry Derham is absolutely flying. I think he's had 4 from 11 in the last fortnight. He would love drying ground. If by this stage on Friday it's sort of goodish, that will definitely suit Queensbury Boy.
And we did get to see him at the Punchestown Festival last year. Of course, David Maxwell was over to ride him that day, and he was second behind Wingmen in one of the bumpers. Feels like there's a lot of bumpers across the week at Punchestown, so I'm not sure exactly which one it was, but he was second under David Maxwell, so he knows the course well. It could be one to run a nice race there for Harry Derham. Don, what's your thoughts on this novice hurdle? Obviously, no declarations yet, but early thoughts, I suppose.
Yeah, it's great to see the British horses coming over, actually, Stephen. It really is important that they come over. It looks like there are going to be more British runners than ever before, or than for a little while at the Punchestown Festival. Harry Derham's got Brentford Hope coming over as well, and we saw Tom Lacey at the meeting last season did really well. So no, it's good. But yeah, I agree with Stephen on this, Emma. The Berry Bingham hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival this season it looked like a really good race. The first three were they were the first three in the market. They were the first three home. They dominated the race really from a fair way out. And I thought when the Yellow Clay moved to the front and Final Demand made a slight mistake at the final flight, I thought he was going to go on and win it. So the New Lion thought did really, really well to keep on and get the better of the Yellow Clay. But it was a big run by the Yellow Clay. And interestingly, both the Yellow Clay and Final Demand, they were both in the 3 mile novices hurdle earlier in the week on the Tuesday, tomorrow, I think it is. And it's interesting that they're going in the 2.5, that they were taken out of that. So it looks like they might just meet now in the 2.5 mile race as well. And Final Demand won the Nathaniel Lacey hurdle at the Dublin Racing Festival. And that's usually a race that it's a stamina race. It's usually a race from which horses go out and trip to 3 miles. The Yellow Clay won the 2 mile 6.5 furlong maiden hurdle at the Down Royal meeting, the Champion Chase meeting back in November. And again, that's obviously it's a stamina type race. But Gordon Elliott said all season that the Yellow Clay has pace as well. He nominated the Berry Bingham race and instead of the Albert Bartlett hurdle early on in the season, and that's where he ran, and that's where he ran a massive race. So over 2.5 miles, you can see them both running big races again. Of the two, I think the Yellow Clay, he just, even before Final Demand made that mistake of the final flight, I liked the way he travelled into the race, and he was probably going on from Final Demand on the run up the hill, maybe as a result of, as Stephen was saying, maybe Final Demand was handier from early, and maybe that mistake at the final flight cost him as well. But the Yellow Clay, he's a horse who's he's been progressing, he's been winning all season. He won the Grade 1 race, the Lawlers race at Nason early January. He didn't run after that until Cheltenham, so he's a relatively fresh horse coming into the race. And yeah, I maybe just favour the Yellow Clay in front of Final Demand.
Shout for the Yellow Clay there, and that one's so kind of an early call, I suppose. It's a bit off yet, but yeah, it's kind of a rematch of that Turner's Novice Hurdle without the winner, of course. And I'd agree with you both. I think the form of that will work out quite well down the line. Like 3 really good horses, the first 3 home in that. But we'll go on to the big race of the day, the 640, the Boodles Champion Hurdle. And Nicky Henderson is definitely treating us here, sending over Constitution Hill. Fell the last twice. We saw him scooting over fences on Twitter during the week. So interesting to see how he'll fare here. James Bowen takes the ride, I think, in Nico de Boinville's absence, and the Irish fans definitely treated, seeing one of the best hurdlers we've seen in quite a while turning up here. But Stateman, our own flag bearer, I suppose, in this 2 mile division, probably the likely representative of Willie Mullins. I think Lossiemouth was taken out of the race this morning. Brighter days ahead, still in here, but I think they're probably swaying towards the Mayor's Hurdle with her by the sounds of it. Golden Ace, of course, can't forget the actual champion hurdle winner this year. It sounds like she's going to travel over as well for Jeremy Scott. So a strong UK contingent in this one, Stephen. Where are you starting here? I suppose Constitution Hill. What's your thoughts? He's got a bit of a point to prove now, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, there won't be many bookmakers scared of laying him, I suppose. That's the thing to say. I mean, the only thing is, it's a bit like Galopin de Champs earlier. Instinctively, you sort of look at the race and you begin thinking, well, after what's happened to him the last twice, you've got to be against him. But then you see that he's 5-4. And I mean, without being unkind to the boy, who's obviously recovering from an injury, I think James Bowen is quite a significant upgrade. Forget about the falls. They can happen to anyone. And his ride before he fell at Aintree was absolutely diabolical, and people should have come out and said so. He lost his place, he got squeezed out, he made a complete mess of it, and then he was a bit unsighted and fell. So we got James Bowen on this afternoon. He's been reschooled. I mean, on form, 5-4 is an absolutely massive. But I mean, you'd be absolutely amazed if he wasn't a sort of 15 length better horse than Golden Ace, who looks like he's going to be about 7 or 8 to 1/3 in. It just depends if all's still well. He's had 2 falls, at the festivals. It's not the ideal preparation. He looked pretty much nearly as good as ever when he won that non-event at Cheltenham earlier in the season. I mean, I suppose the other thing is he could front run here. I wouldn't be at all surprised they popped him off and got him jumping, rolling along in front. They were pretty positive when he landed the odds at Cheltenham earlier in the season, and I could see it really suiting him. I mean, State Man's a fantastic horse. I think he's won 13 out of 19. He's nearly £1.5 million worth of prize money. He'd have won the champion hurdle by 20 lengths, or probably 10. So it's going to be a fascinating betting race. I think it is a match on form, the front two. Let's not get too carried away with Golden Ace. I love Jeremy Scott and I love the horse, but he's not really a champion hurdle horse. And quite a lot happened for him to win that. For him to now be 7 or 8 to 1 is quite a leap of faith. I think he's probably 20 lengths behind the front two. If I had to have a bet, I think I'd have probably back Constitutional at 5-4 and hope that all's well, because if everything is well, I think he'll win.
Yeah, kind of coming here. He's obviously been to Aintree as well, but Donn, that champion hurdle, could it have been any more dramatic? Poor State Man, like Stephen said, where was he 10-15 lengths clear and he came down. But I thought that was probably the best we had seen State Man in a long time in that champion hurdle, regardless of what happened to Constitution Hill. I would have liked to seen what would have happened going up the hill, because State Man was running one of the races of his life that day. So it'll be a really interesting rematch here.
Yeah, look, it'll be brilliant if Constitution Hill does come over, and it looks like he's coming. You know that, the Punchestown racegoers, they're going to give him the reception that he deserves, aren't they? Like we saw it with Sprinter Sacre when Nicky Henderson brought him over. It's brilliant, and the atmosphere, if he does and when he does, it'll just be brilliant to be there and see him. So that's in a nutshell. Hopefully he comes. It'd be brilliant if he does come. In terms of the race as a competition, yeah, look, Stateman, he's won this race for the last 2 years. He would have won the champion hurdle, and like you, Emma, I didn't expect Stateman to put up that level of performance at Cheltenham. He was back to the old Stateman and Paul Townend has always retained faith in him. He's chosen him in front of Lossiemouth on a couple of occasions. So it wouldn't be surprising to see Stateman again bounce back, and we know he goes well at Punchestown as well. So look, it'll be it's a no bet race for me. It'll be a hell of a race between the two of them if they both run. Golden Ace, yeah, look, she was obviously a fortuitous winner of the champion hurdle. She would have been third best, and even Brighter Days Ahead, she underperformed. So I suppose it shows you that at the moment, the way even with Lossiemouth out, the champion hurdler is a 10 or a 12 to 1 shot. She's fourth in. So so many things conspired in the champion hurdle in order to allow her to go and win it. But look, she is the champion hurdler, and fair play to her. And it looks like what she is coming. So great that she's here, or that she's coming. But no, for me, it'll be a race to watch. And hopefully they all jump around. Remember, Stateman and Constitution Hill, both of them failed to finish in the champion hurdle. So hopefully they both finish. They both run the races. And I think it should be a hell of a match between the two of them.
For sure. And speaking of fallers, it's interesting El Fabiolo's entered in this one as well. Maybe if he comes down early in that champion chase, maybe we'll even roll the dice and try him over hurdles. Would definitely be an interesting one to see. It's it's going to be a cracker. And yeah, I'm probably going to head up Friday evening to see Constitution Hill because, you know, like you said, it's like sprint or sacre when you went to Punchestown all those years ago. It's something you'll kind of remember seeing a horse like that coming over. So brilliant contest. Looking forward to it on Friday evening. But we'll go on. We've got 2 more grade ones to chat about. We'll try and get through it quite quickly. We've been going on for quite a while now. 2 grade ones on the Saturday. First off, the 342, the Mayor's Champion Hurdle. Again, no betting for this one yet that I can see. Maybe you guys have betting in front of you now, but sounds as if, look, Lassie Mouth, if she's going to go to Punchestown, this might be where she goes. Brighter Days Ahead, same story again. She's likely to show up here. By the sounds of it from Gordon Elliott, this sounded like her main target here. You'd imagine if the 2 of those show up, they'll be topping the betting at least. I'm a big fan of Carrigace, though. I thought her performance in the County Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival was huge. She was a brilliant juvenile hurdler as well, so she'd be a really interesting addition to the field as well. Got the likes of July Flower, Jade de Grugy, Gala Marceau, Lantry Lady. It's a high class race with these fillies. Donn, I'll go to you first. I suppose, what's your overall view on the race?
Yeah, I think it's similar to Constitution Hill versus State Man, Emma. If Brighter Days Ahead and Lassie Mouth both run, it's going to be a fascinating clash between the 2 of them. And I think it's hard to, I like July Flower as a mare. If she runs here, Cargesi, as you said, was very good in winning the County Hurdle. But I just think these 2 mares they're a little way clear of their rivals, or their would-be rivals. Lassie Mouth has been to Cheltenham. She won the Mares Hurdle there, obviously. Then she won the Entry Hurdle at Entry. Battled on well to beat a good mare in Woodhull, who was unbeaten going into the race. But look, Lassie Mouth, she's just all class. Brighter Days Ahead didn't run a race in the Champion Hurdle. Before that, she was so good. I think the step up to 2.5 miles could be a positive for her. I think she stays 2 miles really well. When she won at Aintree last season, it was the 2.5 mile race that she won, the Mersey Hurdle. So yeah, I think that the step up to 2.5 will suit her. But look, we know that Lassie Mouth is hugely effective over 2.5 miles as well. But again, apologies, but a no bet race for me. It's hopefully they both run. It'll be a clash to savour between the 2 of them. And again, hopefully Brighter Days Ahead can bounce out of Cheltenham from the last day, because it obviously wasn't a running the last day.
No bet race for you. That's fair enough. It'll be a good clash. And Stephen, what's your thoughts on it? Is it just a showdown between the big 2 in the likely to show up here, Lassie Mouth and Brighter Days Ahead?
Well, possibly. I mean, Lassie Mouth was really impressive at Cheltenham. I know it was against inferiors. She bolted up, but I didn't think she was that impressive at Ain. She may be feeling the effects of Cheltenham a little bit, and it's another festival. It's another perhaps harder race even this time. Brighter Days Ahead was a bit like, I talked about Banbridge earlier. Brighter Days Ahead ran abysmally in the Champion Hurdle. She was beaten after 4 hurdles. She wasn't going at all. She must have been a miss because she'd been so impressive. She was one of those horses who divided opinion. A lot of very good judges thought she was a certainty for that race. And she was so disappointing, particularly with what happened early on in the race. So I think it's a leap of faith to back her, particularly with the yard a little bit quiet. The one you touched on, Emma, we don't know if she'll run in this race, Cargess. I think she's very interesting, particularly if the ground dries out. The only thing at the back of my mind is, watched a couple of her runs back, including at Cheltenham. She does pull. She is a hard puller, and will she get home over 2 mile 4? She's won over nearly 2 mile 2, so it shouldn't, perhaps looking for things that don't exist, but it would be a slight concern. It's bound to be a strongly run race. You'd imagine they'll go forwards with Brighter Days Ahead and try and get her back on song from the front. So it'll be a test of stamina. Perhaps that'll help Cargess settle for the first time. I mean, she ended up being 3-1 favourite in that sort of 40-runner handicap at Cheltenham, and she didn't settle there and still won. So she's got a big engine. It wouldn't amaze me if she improved past them. And there's a mare of Henry Daly's down the bottom. I must try and chisel some English runners into this broadcast, even though they might only be beating the ambulance home most of the week. But Why Not is quite a nice mare of Henry Daly's who loves good ground. A lot of Henry Daly's horses like good ground. She does. She was a little bit disappointing at Kelso last time, but that was in a hot race over 3 miles. I don't think she'll mind dropping back in trip, and she'll be finishing strongly, albeit she's got over a stone to find with the principals.
Nice to see her run a good race, and at least it's good to see those connections rolling the dice, I suppose, and coming over if she's declared for this one. But yeah, Cargess is interesting, I think, but Lassie Mountain Brighter Days Ahead. Brighter Days Ahead, I know she disappointed at Cheltenham, but she did bounce back to win at Aintree after doing the kind of similar last year, I suppose. So couldn't totally rule her out either. But Cargess may be interesting. outside of the big two, perhaps. But we'll go on one more Grade 1 to chat about on the week of Punchestown. We're nearly there. At the Ballymore champion, 4-year-old hurdle Grade 1 over the 2 miles. And again, another big UK challenger, Lalamba. I think Nicky Henderson's pretty confident. He is coming over along with Constitution Hill. Brilliant to see him coming over. He'll be taking on his Cheltenham conqueror, I suppose, Poneros. He won't be going off as big a price for this one, you'd imagine, for Tony Bloom and Willie Mullins, 100-1 winner of the Triumph Hurdle at the Cheltenham Festival, but he'll be a lot shorter here, you'd imagine. Mercia, Grade 1 winner at Aintree as well. It's a packed field. Hello Neighbour. Maybe a bit disappointing at the Cheltenham Festival, but a very high-class horse on his day. Stephen, I'll go to you first. Lalamba. Maybe left a few punters down at Cheltenham. Do you think he can make it back up to them here? I'd say he's likely to go off favourite.
Yeah, well, I haven't recovered since Lalamba, but I can't believe it didn't win at the Cheltenham Festival. I actually backed it, I think it's sort of 2-1 after it won at Ascot, and it looked like that race was going to be weak, and then all of a sudden the horse of James Owens, is it East India Doc, came out the woodwork. That ended up favourite in the race. But Lalamba was a very big drifter, was sort of freely available at 3-1 on the day at Cheltenham, so you just ended up having more on. And I just can't believe, I still can't believe it got beaten. It was what I'm ashamed to say. It's one of those horses, when it went back over the line, the winner, Poneros, you sort of had to look it up to see what it was. I mean, let me know next time Willie Mullins has a 100-1 winner, at least alone at the Cheltenham Festival. But it's always nice to be on the second, Emma, isn't it, when something like that happens? Absolutely delightful. I mean, they say that God was a bookmaker once, and I think there's some truth in that. But I think Lalamba had every chance at Cheltenham, but as I said earlier, there was a bit of sort of stargazing. You get over on that rail up the hill at Cheltenham, hitting the front, they run around and they often don't power on head down to the line that you see them at other tracks. They look the grandstand or the crowd ahead or whatever. But I think that was the case with Lalamba. He didn't see the winner coming, unfortunately. And I think Lalamba is a very high-class horse. And by the way, all of Nicky Henderson's horses want good ground, really. It just tends to be the case. And Lalamba definitely will improve for proper good ground if that's where you'd imagine by what time is it? It's going to be sort of be nearly midnight on Saturday by the time you're running this race, won't it? It seems a long way off at the moment. But Lalamba will love the ground if it's dried out. And I think it'll be very hard to beat.
Yeah, I'd say it's long odds on that he's going to get good ground at Saturday at Punchestown anyway. It'll be drying all week long, you'd imagine. Donn, what do you think? Can he bounce back from that maybe defeat at Cheltenham and get his head in front of Punchestown?
Yeah, I think we'll know what won the Guineas by the time this race is run, won't we? We'll have to get the Guineas run before this. Look, Lalamba, I agree with Stephen. You thought he was coming to win his race. You were kind of wondering, was he going to get the better of East India Doc? And then he did. And then Poneros came on the far side. It was, the Triumph Hurdle. We had a lot of strangely run races at the Cheltenham Festival, and the result of this was one of them. I watched the race in the stands, and afterwards, there were people checking the race cars to see what was that in the blue colours that just won. But he did win, and on his first run over hurdles, he was obviously a classy horse from the flat going into it, a horse who had a rating of in the 90s on the flat. So if he runs here, he's going to be a big player again. Lalamba, brilliant if he comes over. He was all the talk and all the rage before the Triumph Hurdle, and he lived up to all of it. If Poneros hadn't been in the race, it would have been exactly as you would have expected, for all that he didn't go off favourite in the end. It was East India Doc went off as favourite. So look, they're two big players, but I think Hello Neighbour could get a bit closer to them than he did at Cheltenham. Like he's a good horse on the flat as well, rated in the 90s on the flat. He won his 2 races over hurdles, including the Spring Juvenile Hurdle. That's often a really good pointer to the Triumph Hurdle. And then in the Triumph Hurdle, I thought he travelled really well through his race, and then just coming to the last, he made a mistake at the last, but I think he probably made the mistake because he was tiring as opposed to the other way around. So, but I just think Punchestown might suit him a bit better. He's got lots of speed. He travels really well through his races. He was travelling at least as well as anything else, maybe, and better than most on the run into the home straight at Cheltenham, and maybe just the final kind of incline at the end of 2 miles in a furlong found him out back down to 2 miles exactly. On better ground at Punchestown. I think that'll all suit him well. And I can see Hello Neighbour. And like as you say, I don't think we have prices on this yet. I haven't seen any, but I can see him being maybe a little bit underrated by the market if both Lalamba and Poneros run.
Yeah, for sure. It'd be interesting to see what price they open up at, I suppose. And you have to give a bit of mention to Bacalian as well for Declan Queally. I think he's been a really impressive juvenile hurler. He obviously has ground to make up with Hello Neighbour on their Dublin Racing Festival running, but really impressive winner twice since. He beat Murcia shortly after running at the Dublin Racing Festival. Murcia went on to win a Grade 1 in Aintree, so form of him looks strong as well. He skipped the big festivals, comes here maybe a little bit fresher than some. I couldn't rule him out either, but it's hard to make a strong case for the race without prices in front of us, I suppose. But look, I think we've gone through all of the big races across the week at Punchestown, all the Grade 1s. So we'll probably just wrap it up there, guys. Do you have a best bet of the week? Maybe I might be putting you on the spot here now. I'm not sure that I had this in the running order, but maybe over the first 2 days, give someone your best bet.
I think, Emma, as we were saying earlier on, for all the reasons earlier on, I think Ampere Pass is a little bit overpriced in the Dooley Insurance Group race. So you can see Ballyburn and Lecky Watson, they're both big players, especially Ballyburn, but I think Ampere Pass has been just a little bit overlooked. Well, not overlooked, but definitely underrated in the market.
Very good. Stephen, you have one?
Yeah, I think Ballyburn, who's nearly 6-4, 450 on Tuesday, front run, jump well, long odds on after 3 fences. And I think Donn mentioned it, and I totally agree with him. 6 o'clock, again on Tuesday. I think Solness, double figures. I think you'll be getting quite excited after a mile anyway. I don't think it'll be 10-1 at that point. And he should go really well. He could take a bit of fetching back round there as things start drying out. He's a proper 2-miler, and maybe the other two aren't.
Very good. We've got the naps of the week from the two experts have spoken. Hopefully we've found plenty of winners for all the listeners across the week as well. Thanks everyone for tuning in. If you like the content, make sure to like and subscribe. Hope you all have enjoyable and profitable Punchestown. If you're going to have a bet this week, make sure to gamble responsibly. It'll be a cracking week of racing. And it's a long week of Punchestown, so make sure to definitely bet responsibly as the week goes on. But thanks, Donn, and to Stephen, for all your insight into all the big races across the week. We'll be back next Monday with our normal show with Vincent and Johnny to wrap up on all of the action. Thanks for watching, and bye for now.